Just chat.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Just Chat. I'm your host, Uncle Dominic. Today, we have some very interesting topic. The topic is there hope? Now, we all know what is hope, right? Hope is we really wish something will happen or change something that is, what's going on with our life today. So, in the beginning of the month of May, there is a mental health awareness day. It's a mental health awareness month, and so we all want to figure out how we can, get rid of our problems with mental health. Um, Mental health means something to do with not physical, but something to do with our brain, And so, yeah, and today we have a very special guest, and her name is Rebecca Chandler. She's a pretty an author, so she has an author about her life, a book about her life and how she changed things that changes in her life that affect her. So let's welcome her and let's talk about that later more. Okay, all right. Let's welcome Rebecca Chandler. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you today?
I am good. I'm happy it's Saturday.
It's Saturday. It is
Mm,
Sunday here.
I know, yeah, but it's, weekend. It's great.
Awesome. Well, could you introduce to us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a film and television and content exec producer, and I consult with different companies on their content creation. And I'm also an author and speaker.
Okay. Um, because you're an author of a book, right? And the name of the book is
It won't hurt none.
exactly. It wouldn't
Yes,
hurt none.
it
So
won't
I
hurt none.
really like that. That topic. It wouldn't hurt none. Could you explain to us how you come up with that? It won't hurt none. It's pretty catchy.
Yeah, so I'm a survivor of early childhood abuse, and that abuse started when I was 5 and it ended when I was 13. And when I was 13 years old, I was sitting in my grandparents' house, and my grandfather, who was the one abusing me, he tried to assault me again. It had gone on for years, obviously. And when he grabbed me and he was trying to assault me, he whispered in my ear, "Let's go outside. It won't hurt none." And
Mm.
and then something just happened inside of me, where I just a switch got flipped, and I fought back for the first time. Over the 8 years I had been abused, I fought back that night and I ended the abuse. So the title of the book is just a reflection of that moment, but I think more broadly, it's a reflection of healing from that kind of moment in your life, and how to kind of work through the hurt and get to the other side of it.
Did it take very long for you to get over it?
I don't think that kind of trauma, and it could be, trauma is different for everybody. It could be sexual trauma, it could be verbal abuse, it could be a car accident, right? The trauma is different for everybody. I don't think
Mm.
it's something you necessarily get over. I think that if you do the work and if you go into different kinds of therapy and if you really pay attention to it, it's something that you can make less complicated, if that makes sense. But I'm not
Mhm.
sure that you ever really get completely over something like that.
Mm. Yeah, there's a quote that says that stick and stones may hurt. What stick and stones may hurt me, but words
Sticks and
can hurt.
stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Yeah.
Yeah, but kind of in the opposite way. I don't. I think words actually hurts more than sticks and stones in the long term run. So mental trauma, like things like this happen physically, but it does cause a bit of a mental stress. And I think it takes a long time for some people. Um, well,
Yeah,
actually,
I mean,
it's a long time for a lot of people. Like you mentioned, it doesn't. People don't actually go over it, I guess, but it's just it's always lingering somewhere in your mind, and just So if you're able to, how do we say, lessen it, right? Listen it. Uh,
yeah, become less
Better.
sensitive to it for sure. I mean, in my case, my mind made the exceptional choice to create multiple personalities as a result of what was happening to me.
Oh, okay.
So, in addition to just being traumatized and whatever, I had multiple personality disorder for quite some time. And
Mm,
trying to unpeel and unpack all of that and to learn why those personalities existed and how to extinguish them took decades. So, it's definitely a lot of work to get
mhm.
beyond what's happened to you and to have life make sense.
So sorry for delving more into this,
No,
but
it's fine.
when this happens, do you actually find search for professional help or do you not?
I sought professional help and I didn't mention my abuse to anyone ever. And the first time I ever spoke about it was when I was in therapy when I was 20 and I put myself into therapy.
Mm,
And I've been in different kinds of therapy because there's so many different kinds now, off and on over the years.
mhm,
Unfortunately, I think that a lot of people are uncomfortable with the idea of therapy. They don't
mhm.
really understand what it is. And so I think a lot of people don't actually get the help that they need, which is really unfortunate.
So it does help though, right?
Yeah, it absolutely makes a huge difference in
Okay.
how you're able to live your life.
Mhm. It's just perfect for today's talk and today's topic for our just chat, which is there hope? I mean, I'm an educator in a school, and
Mm,
so for students to actually study every day, and so the stress I think that goes for them will be the mental stress for studies, right? So they will be stressing out on whether they could pass the subject or graduate from school, or even what's in store for them in the future. And so sometimes they will get overwhelmed by their grades, or things, maybe relationship problems with their families. This causes them to think about what is there in the future for them. Is there hope to do anything for them at all? Is there hope for them to be successful? So in your case, in your story, um, when this you know abuse happened to you during your childhood days, right, to your younger days, um, do you ever thought that, oh, this is it for me, or there's no hope for me, or why is this happening?
I'm sure I thought all of those things. And I think it's when something like that's happening and it doesn't have to be as horrible as that for it to affect your
Mm,
mind, by the way. It could be the stress of school that
mm,
creates some mental health issues. But for me, I think only thing I focused on was surviving. And for some reason, at a really young age, I decided that I needed to do really well in school to survive what was happening to me. And I needed to really focus on building my mind well, because I knew, I don't come from a particularly educated family.
mhm.
We never had any money. So I just decided really young that I needed to keep my mind sharp and I needed to do very well in school to get out of my circumstance. And that's what I hung on to, I think, the most.
Well, that is good. That is good. Is there like what something that sparked you to decide to take stand or something? Because usually, right, for most people who suffer cases, they give up on life or they just go to the darker path. I don't
Mm.
know how you describe darker or lighter in life, but yeah. So someone would take a different route than what you do. Some people would not even stand for themselves. They just say, okay, that's it. I'm doomed to fail, so might as well let it fail. So is there like a moment, or is there something?
I think it's a really good question. I think that for, I think it was just some sort of my body and mind taking things to the next level on my behalf. I certainly didn't expect me to fight back. I didn't know that I was going to fight back. I knew that my body and mind were tired of being assaulted. And I think that at some point, my mind and body just took over. It sounds kind of odd, but just kind of took over from myself. And the fact that I wasn't able to create a plan of, okay, this is going to happen and I'm going to fight back and I'm going to end this. But my body and mind said, no problem, we'll take care of you right now. And so there's just that kind of moment where I was almost outside of myself as it was happening. And I don't really know what the spark for that was, except that I know that my mind and body were absolutely tired of it.
Is okay. So, is there? Do you think is there any advice that you could give to younger people out there who are experiencing certain similar situation like you, or maybe similar things happening for them?
Yeah, I think what's complicated about this is that the culture in my family, which is a lower middle class called, family in Southern California, is that we were taught to never speak about our elders in a bad way. We were taught never to disrupt the family.
Mm,
So I think what's difficult, and I think it's the same in a lot of cultures, is that ability to say how you're feeling or if someone's hurting you is really complicated inside
yeah.
families. It's just so complicated. And all I can tell someone is if they are experiencing any kind of harm, mental harm, verbal harm, physical harm, find someone, just one person. It could be a best friend, it could be someone on the internet, it could be, it doesn't have to be someone in your family. Find someone that you can share your story with as an outlet for all of the tension and all of the
Mhm.
sadness and all of it that's building, and just hang on to them until maybe you get a bit older or things change and you're actually able to ask for help.
Hmm. That is definitely a good advice. I think nowadays, young people, uh, they have problems that have in their life, and it's just harder for them to express it. Um, pro- I'm sure there's outlets everywhere. They are there. It's just
Mm.
sometimes they're afraid to put it out there. Is there any way that you could, any motivation words that you could say to help these people actually put it out there? I mean, the outlets are all there, like, so how are they, what can
I
you say to help them to jump out from there?
the first thing I would encourage people to do is if you are in a bad situation, or if you're unhappy, if something's happening to you that's unsafe and that is crossing the line in any way, I would just encourage people to first tell yourself that it's true, that it's happening, because sometimes you kind of repress, or you try not to think about it, or you try to pretend it doesn't exist. And really, for me, the very first step in all of this is just to write it down. You can write it down on a piece of paper. You can write it as a message on your phone,
Mm,
if that's what you want to do. And you can delete it, you can burn it, you can throw it away. But just to acknowledge outside of yourself that something's going on is a really incredible step,
mhm,
because it takes some of the pressure you're holding on inside of yourself and it puts it on the piece of paper, or it puts it on your phone, or it just takes a little bit of that pressure off. And you can write the same sentence every day for 6 months. You can write one sentence on day 1, and you can write another sentence on day 2. And I think the first step is acknowledging that something's wrong, and then the next step is just saying it out loud, however you can do that. And then eventually, hopefully, you feel confident enough to be able to ask someone for help, anyone for help, you know.
mm. That's actually very good. Writing it down. Totally agree with writing things down. Most of the times, I tell myself if I want to get better in a lot of things, I need to write it down, and eventually
Mm,
I see it again. Nowadays with digital stuff, I tend to write stuff on the computer.
right.
Um, Before I used to write a lot of stuff on my computer, on my notes, and then eventually, computer break down and I lose all my notes. And
Uh-oh.
I'm very glad right now we have Facebook, so I'm able to put my personal notes on Facebook. But of course, personal notes means I put it on privacy under for myself, so
Yeah.
only I can see it. And so and I liked it this way because after a couple months or few weeks recently, Facebook does this thing where it sends it back to you and then tells you
Mm.
again this is your uh, remembers or memories. So I'm like, oh, so something bad happened to me during this time. What was it? So I'll be looking at it. I was like, oh yeah, and maybe something better happened to me this time. Oh yeah, so it helps me to look back at my life and evaluate it and think that, oh, back then at that time I still remember like it was very terrible for me. I feel like, there's no hope for anything. I want to end my life or whatever. But now I look back at it, I'm like, oh, I've already overcome it. I've passed that.
I
So
love
I'm like
that.
different. I'm doing different things now. So that actually helps me. Like when you said writing it down. So if we do go back to our notes and stuff, it shows us that we are different. We are getting better, or we are not. But I think most of the time we are getting better. Right? Did you agree to that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a lot of catharsis and healing in writing something on a piece of paper. And there's a lot of healing that comes from burning that piece of paper. And this is a pretty fundamental part of the healing process is to kind of you read it, you write it down, read it out loud, and then burn the note. And there's something about doing that that kind of sparks the healing inside of you. But I love the idea that you're using like an archive to remind yourself of this may have been a really difficult time,
Mhm.
but it was 6 months ago and I'm here now. And I think the big question for me would be to always ask, do I still feel the same way about that? Or
Ah,
did
yes.
I
Yes.
manage to find a way to heal from it, to heal
Mhm.
out of it? Am I still stuck in it, but ignoring it? Like it's a really great way to go back and go, you know what? And did I evolve out of that? Or am
Mhm.
I still a little bit stuck in it? And if I'm stuck in it, maybe I need to think about it a little bit more. But I love that idea.
It's yeah. It's definitely difficult for other people to put it into, to put it
Oh,
out there, even
really
into
difficult.
their own books, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think mostly because I'm an educator, I mentioned earlier, I keep mentioning that. But most of my students, I notice it's the most problems they have in their life, I guess, would be anxiety, right? Um,
Yeah.
and also family problems. I do notice
Mm.
a lot of people have family problems. I'm not gonna say my family is perfect. I'm just gonna say there is family problems. My students have family problems, and when it happens, you can see in their faces when they go to school, in my classes, and they'll be like totally down. They don't want to do anything. So recently, I did have one student, one female student. She was totally out of it. She was
Mm.
a happy-going girl, but suddenly she was out of it. I was wondering why, and of course, I can't force her to tell me what
Right.
she experienced because that's what it is right now nowadays. Um, but I told her, there are lots of outlets in school. We have a counselor in school. You do need to, if you feel like you need to talk to a counselor or a teacher. I'm a teacher, I'm available, but I don't think I can help you that much. But a counselor is probably more professional. And I told her about that. She's like, and I told, well, there are cookies and and sodas, whatever, at the counseling office. You can go there and get a free cookie and just enjoy and see what happens. And so she did that, and um I think it took her about 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks. And then finally last week I saw her in my class. She was back to normal again. So it feels like it did help her. So just
Yeah.
imagine if she didn't, if no teacher or nobody or an adult or a friend approach you or approach her to tell her that there are ways she could, express herself to get her feelings out. I think she'd probably be stuck there for a while. Maybe. I'm
Mm.
guessing. This is just speculating, right?
Yeah, it happens a lot, doesn't it? It happens to everybody, even adults, that you get stuck on something and you kind of brood over it. You overthink it sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes some really serious stuff is going on and you just don't know what to do with it. You have no idea where to even start the conversation. So I think it's fantastic that you pay attention so closely to your students that you notice when something's off and that you actually, make sure that they feel supported. Because I think one of the worst things you can do when someone's having a mental health, a tough time is it starts to feel very lonely and you start to feel really isolated. Like
Yeah.
nobody understands me, nobody else has this problem. What's wrong with me? And that kind of self-hate narrative can really start to grow.
I
And
know.
I just it's and you're not alone. Trust me, there's no way that you're alone. Just Google I'm thinking this way. Does anybody else? And you'll get a million responses of yes. There's
Mhm.
lots of that going on, especially with teens now. I don't envy teens today the fact that they have to deal with social media and the pressure of social media on top of trying to do well in school.
Mhm.
I think that there's so much pressure coming out of social media that's really horrible. And then I also think that there's a lot of emphasis on school that's just gone too far. I don't, as someone who's been educated and who's gone through a very healthy career, I really, and I've had employees and I've owned companies, I don't believe that education is the beginning and end of your life. I just don't buy into that. No way,
Mm.
you know.
I guess in some ways I will agree with you. In some ways I will also disagree with you.
Of course, of course. I mean,
Because
education is
if I were to tell my
fundamental.
students, don't come to school, I'll be in
No,
trouble.
no,
We'll get
no,
fired the
no.
next day.
Get
But
educated, but don't go crazy over it. Don't torture yourself over whether or not you got the perfect score every day. And don't, life is a learning and you never
yeah.
stop learning. But being graded in school is only part of the learning process. So don't take it too personally. I just think the pressure is really extraordinary now.
So for my viewers out there from the Western countries, this is a great advice for you. But for Asian countries, this
I
is going to be
know.
very difficult. We'll be
I lived
going
in
against the
Singapore. I get
government,
it.
going against the norms of society. So it's a bit difficult. But I do, and kids nowadays, right? If this is open, shown to them that they can do things like this, then they tend not to put their effort in education. I told my students, if you want to do well in life, in general, right? Education is always important. I told
Yeah,
them it's
I
important.
agree.
But if you don't do well, that is not saying it is okay. Now, here's the thing: when I tell them, if they work their hardest and they don't do well, their scores doesn't. I mean, don't do well is in the scores do not reflect on what they're doing, and I guess I told them that will be okay because you have put your effort into it,
Yeah.
right? I told them also, if you want to do a business or whatever, education that you have is actually a backup or a background for you to start something. So if you were to, do well in your education, get good grades, especially in Taiwan, like education is based on the grades. So they want
Yeah.
to go to top school,
America
you have to get
too.
top grades, right? And so if you get that, and then you go to the top school, your life is almost set for you in Taiwan. And if you have other things you want to do, then that is helpful to you and you can do that. But if you want to do something else and your education doesn't help you and you want to fall back on something, there's nothing to fall back on, right? So as a father, I want that for my kids as well. Like they need something to fall back on. um, because if you look at me, even though I'm an educator, I feel like there are so many things I could go on, and I'm still trying. But if I fail, at least I still have my background to fall onto. So, kind of like a safety net, I would say, right?
I mean, what you're describing exists in North America too, by the way. It's education is still paramount to most kids and most families. It's not there's not a lot of relaxed atmosphere around going to school and stuff like that. I would just say I want kids to fall forward. So if
Mm,
you are an entrepreneur and that business fails, and by the way, businesses fail every day. It's normal for a business to fail. It's okay if a business fails. It's all right. Failing is actually okay. It's part of
yep.
life.
Power learning.
It's not the end of the world. And you will fail many times. I fail all the time. But I want you to fail forward. So if you're an entrepreneur and the first business fails, I don't necessarily want you falling back onto anything. I want you to fail forward. And I want you to stand up, think about why your first business failed. Okay, that's why it failed. You learn so many things and then keep going forward, right? And so it's I understand. I would never debate the importance of education. I would just say that I've met so many people who've said to me, I could never write a book. And I've asked, like, well, why do you say that? Well,
Mm,
because when I was in school, I didn't get good grades in English, for example. Okay, well, getting a good grade in English has nothing to do with whether or not you can write a book. And the discipline of sitting down every day like I did, and I wrote 6 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week for 7 months to finish my book. That had nothing to do with school. So there's a balance, right? There's a blend between developing some discipline in your life to achieve what you want, and then getting those educational tools and all the things that education
Mm,
gives you to to help build the foundation more. But I think what's unfortunate in the American system, and I don't know anything about the Taiwanese system, but the
mhm,
American system, it's more about the grades a label than it is an indicator of where you are in the moment. And so
mhm,
if you're a quote B student or a C student in
mhm,
America, that means you're not very smart. And that's not true. Maybe you don't test well. Maybe you're having difficulty at home and you can't memorize things. Like I couldn't memorize because of my trauma. So I
mhm,
had to work 3 times harder as my friends to get through things like calculus and all these other
mhm,
classes I had to take. So I just would encourage people to know that if you're struggling with school, stay in school. School's really important, but also know that your grade isn't an indicator of who you are or who you're going to be. It's an indication of where you are on that day at that time when you took a test. That's all, right?
yep.
And I think I just want to make it's important to me that people understand that the B in English does not mean you can't be a writer, you know.
I have A in English. I'm
Um,
still having difficult time writing. I haven't finished my book yet, by the way. I'm still like,
You are going to
it,
finish your book.
it's what you said, a discipline. You put your
It
hours down
is.
in a day to do it. I'm like, oh man, putting the hours in, and then the
Yeah.
question is coming, can I finish this? And then you get people telling you, no, you can't write. Same thing like you, but in my case, it's a bit different. It's like, why write? What's the point of writing a book? No one's gonna
Mm.
buy you a book. Things like that. It was like, oh yeah, So I've been putting off. It's been a couple of years now. I'm still writing the same thing, and I'm not done
Hey,
really ever done yet. So, but
well,
that's the thing. It's putting the work in it. Right. I'm not gonna get A's for my writing book or my book or but if you put effort into it, things is gonna happen. Like you did. Like you said, you have problems. Well, obviously, you said problems in your family. But you put effort in studying and then trying to put your best in there. You didn't
yeah.
get the best grades, but you did get something out of it, right?
I mean, I
So
had
I
a
do want
4.2. I did pretty well, right? So I had straight A's and extras. So,
to.
but so yeah, I did pretty well. But I didn't get to go to the university I wanted to go to because my family couldn't afford it. So there's all kinds of stuff in there, right?
Yeah,
So
it's life. There's gonna
it's
be things
life.
that
It's
stop us
just life.
from getting certain things we want, and then when that happens, we tend to wonder, why is this happening? Why can't it be? Why can't it be better for me? Like,
Yeah.
there are some students who be like, oh, I ace grades in school, but when it comes to colleges, I still ace them. But when it comes to work, I'm like, oh, I'm having difficult time finding the right job,
Yeah.
or I can't go to the right school. But then, there are things like family problems and money problems. It comes in as you grow older, and it becomes,
Sickness, all kinds
yeah,
of things, right?
sickness, all kinds of things,
Life.
right?
Life. But I think it's
Yeah,
a great way to segue into hope and the fact that, you know, if I think that hope, when you have hope and you're able to maintain hope, then you can set some goals and you can have a strategy about how you're going to get to those goals, and you can feel
mhm,
motivated, and all those things build the concept of hope. And it's just, even if you're not doing well in school, or if you're having family problems or whatever, you can come up with a goal and a strategy to meet the goal, and it means that you've got hope, you haven't given up. And I think that's really important to remember, is set a goal, set a way you're going to achieve it, and get as close to it as you can. And if you have to change the goal because of things that happen, like an
mhm,
illness or family dynamics or whatever, that's
mhm,
okay, as long as you keep pushing towards the goal, right?
mhm,
And that's
mhm.
hope. As long as you maintain hope is what's really important, I think.
That's right. I think it's having the right mindset. It's all about mindsets, right? Building it into making a habit out of it. When it helps you. Like when we are about to give up, we tend to question, like you said, like we question things like, is there hope, right? And so, but we don't tend to think of the whole thing as a journey. If we think of it like a journey, like we're gonna stumble on some stumbling blocks and then go over them. um, some small tiny obstacles. It may seem like a huge obstacle. It does seem like a huge obstacle. I mean, if you
It
like,
might be a huge obstacle. Look at
right, you will look
yeah.
at it, it feels like, "Oh, there's no way around it, you know." And so, but eventually you will, time pass and you actually get over it, and then you feel better about it sometimes, right? I
Yeah,
think that's like the
sometimes. And sometimes it stays with you. Sometimes it's one of those things that just stays with you for a long time, and you kind of carry it with you until you learn how to let it go. But it's yeah, I think it's, you know, put one foot in front of the other every day and see how far you can get. And I think it's the knowing that failure is normal
Mhm.
and it's absolutely part of life is to fail, right? I have failed 1,000 times and I'm going to fail 1,000 times more before I'm gone. So I'm not afraid to fail because it means I tried, you know. And so failing isn't an indication of whether or not I'm a good person or I'm going to be successful. It
Mhm.
just means I tried and it didn't work out, so I'll try again. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess for my students, if you fail, try again, right?
Keep
But at
trying.
the same time, don't
Yeah.
do the same mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes. Go overcome it, and just
Yeah, for sure. Oh, for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
you will learn it. Go over it. I had a colleague before. What did she say? Let me see. Oh yeah, that's right. I was having a down day that day, and
Mm.
she came to me and says, Dominic, there you have been great so far. You have been amazing, but you look pretty down today. What's up? And I told her, oh, I had this class, and it was, pretty depressing because the things that students do say. Well, nowadays, young people, the things they say, very negative sometimes, and
Mm.
you try not to take it too hard, but it it does hurt a little bit, right? And what she told me was like, don't worry, by the end of the month, you're getting paid for it. I'm like, oh yeah, so just wait for your money. She's like, you just think of it as money is coming to you. That's your blessing. I'm like, yeah. So is that how you do it? I asked her. She said, yeah, that's how I do it. Every month, I keep thinking money is coming. I can use that money to reinvest in myself, buy new things. I'm like, that's an interesting kind of mindset.
It
So what
is.
she did was she put the students as dollar bills, and if they are mean to her, she's like, it's okay, it's a dollar bill, but at the end of the month, I get the money, and so she's having the last laugh. So I'm like, okay,
Oh,
so
wow.
yes, well, I don't think like that, but I think that is an interesting mindset. It helps her. So it kind of cheered me up that day by thinking, oh yeah, it's true, right? So at the end of the month, I'm getting paid for this, so I can endure it, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
And
but of course,
also, I mean, just know that when someone who takes all of their internal stuff, be it anger, shame, fear, whatever it is, and they push it out of their mouth, and they're targeting someone who they think will receive it and
mm,
ingest it because they can't handle it anymore. Just know that it rarely has anything to do with you, right?
right,
So who someone who expresses their anger or who insults you, makes fun of you, whatever they're doing, it's really a reflection of how they feel inside.
mm,
And it's you have a choice. You either absorb it or you let it pass. And it's hard. It's not like every day you can go, I'm not going to receive that. That's my thing.
yeah,
Do I want to receive this? No, I don't want to receive this. It's hard to do that, but I do think that sometimes you have to create these systems of like, I'm going to see you as dollar bills because you're really annoying me right now. And I mean, I think I love it's a fun tool. I wouldn't want to sit in it too long, but I get how that happens for sure.
yeah, definitely, right. But
Yeah.
a lot of people do actually. To think about that. I think a lot of people do think that they work in hard jobs, and at the end of the day, they say, okay, it's all for the family. It's all for the to feed, to put money, to put food on the table, and so my family can enjoy it. So that kind of I wouldn't say excuse, but that kind of reasoning actually helps you to stay longer. All right. And so sometimes, I guess, sometimes, right, in during abuse relationship or abuse things,
Mm.
abusive relationships, people tend to do think that as well, right? Oh, it's all for the kids. I'm gonna withstand this. Oh,
Yes.
it's all for the for my father, or it's all for my mother. And so if we think about that, what do you think they should actually do? Should they just think like that, or should they change?
I think it's really complicated because if you're in an abusive relationship, let's say your husband's abusing you, chances are you're already so full of shame about the fact that you're being abused that the shame convinces you that you can't have a better life. So the thought of leaving that abusive environment and starting a new life, the shame in your head is already busy telling you you're not going to be any better over there. You don't deserve anything different than what you're getting right now. So that's really complicated. I think that a lot of, and I can only speak for women. I don't know how men in abusive relationships manage this, but I think a lot of women who are abused inside relationships, and that can happen as a teenager, it can
Mm,
happen as an adult. So like, we should, I think, acknowledge that is that it's it's so complicated, and you're so embarrassed, and you don't know how it started, and it usually starts kind of slow, and then it
for sure,
ramps
yeah.
up, into this kind of other abusive nightmare. So I think that if women have the opportunity to leave and take their children, and this is all comes down to, does the law support you? Does the community support you? Are you going to be shunned? In some cultures, you'll be stoned. Like it's really complicated
Mm,
to leave a husband, especially when there's dowry involved. It becomes very
mm,
complicated. So, but if you have a good social structure and you're able to leave and leave safely, then I would hope that you get out, because the chances of that abuse transferring from you to your kids is very high. The statistics are very strong. So, and you don't want to be a conduit for your kids being abused, right? But I do think it's really complicated for anyone to be in an abusive environment and to make that bold, really scary step of stepping outside of what the culture tells you you should be doing, and you should be behaving this way, and you should just put up with it, and it's not that bad, and you deserve it. You have to break through all of those things to get to safety, and I think that's really complicated for women with children.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't just say women with children. I would say men as well,
No,
because
for sure.
we have to be gender
Anyone,
equality right now. But
yeah,
but
no,
what I'm saying
anyone
is
that's being abused and trying to break out of that abusive environment, very
right.
complicated. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. It's just like because we tie ourselves down to certain things. For example, if you have children,
Mm.
you kind of tie yourself down to children, to your kids, and then when things like this happen, it's harder to get out of it because you are tied to certain things,
Yes.
like dowry and money, especially, or if you lend money from the bank or anything, it ties down something. It's even worse if it's family related because they are closer to you than another person.
Right.
So, and
And it
in a
usually is, by the way.
right,
Statistically,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
usually
yeah.
someone you know. Yeah.
And it's even worse and more difficult in Asian culture, right? And so like Asian culture, if you try to get out of your family, it's totally difficult. It's difficult to even break the line from it. So it's hard to even
That's
think
true
about
in
it sometimes.
Africa. It's true in Asia. It's true in South America. And it's true in the Middle East. It's like North American culture and Western culture is a little different because divorce is so normalized now, right? But I can
Mm,
tell you this, leaving a relationship because of abuse is still has a lot of stigma attached to it, even in North America. It's just people don't understand it. So people have built kind of the wrong ideas around it.
mm.
It's really, and it's just so complicated. It's complicated for anyone who wants to get out. It's complicated.
That's right. Yeah, it's yeah. Let's try to touch on another point I want to touch on because you mentioned that you were in social media and video
Film
or
and
something,
TV.
filming, yeah, content, right?
Mm,
And for younger kids now or teenagers, I would say, or even adults, right? Their outlet for expressing themselves right now is usually on social media.
yeah,
um, they find that as a way to get out of whatever is going on, but at the same time social media has the norms itself, right? It feels like you gotta put a perfect picture out there, or a perfect
Mm,
video, or perfect something for people to see. And when they don't like your video or liked your picture, they tend to get this idea that no one likes them. Or
mm.
and so, what's your point of view on this?
The perfection thing, I would say, has existed forever. When I was a kid, we didn't have social media, but we had magazines and TV. And the
Mhm,
the version of a perfect looking woman was certainly ever present on TV, billboards, in magazines, and in our toys. If you look at a Barbie doll, that
mhm,
tells you exactly what in North America was the perfect female, right? So that idea of perfectionism has now been given a global stage on places like Instagram, where people use filters and stuff to 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 create an alternative life that doesn't exist, right? So that's,
mhm,
I think that this social media version of perfection is just an evolution of what I grew up
mhm,
with. It's certainly more saturated now. It's certainly far too present now, but I think it's just an evolution of how I was exposed to perfectionism as a woman in America. Um, the 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 phenomenon of people posting something on social media and getting a bad result. And if I post a photo and I'll get 400 likes off of my video, but that on TikTok, for example, but in that one comment, someone's expressed something negative, and it's kind of like we're fundamentally wired just to focus on the negative and not the
mhm,
positive. And I think that it's unfortunate that for whatever reason, society today spends a lot of its time and energy worrying about what other people think. And I know that on my social media, I can tell in the first sentence if that person's going to be positive or negative. And if they're negative, I stop reading it. A, I don't
mhm,
know you. So why am I listening to a stranger? I don't know you. You're not fundamental to my life, hour to hour, day to day.
mhm,
I have really good close friends that make me feel inspired and loved and who celebrate me. Those are the people I listen to.
mhm,
And I think that there's something happened in relationships over the past couple of decades where those really tight, fibrous, important relationships that build your life,
mhm.
somehow that got confused with a stranger on social media. And life turned into a scorecard. How many likes can you get? I don't care.
Mhm.
But I don't but for generations behind me, millennials and Gen Z, it's the ultimate expression of love for people is how many likes I get. And so something got twisted in there that I think that we need to start to pull apart, because it it it's sad to me that people wake up I have a niece. She's 20 years old. She is obsessed with her phone and looking for likes and how many followers does she have on Insta versus TikTok versus whatever. And it's if that is life's scorecard, and if you're not fulfilled in any other way, you're going to be really unhappy for a long time. And I think it's really sad.
It does make you unhappy. I wouldn't say I wouldn't be happy with more views or more likes and stuff like that. Yeah, but it's like what we said, like societies, that's what is happening. And when we portray ourselves against it kind of makes us like, oh no, like recently I had a dinner with some of my teachers and students. Um, they were actually putting up their Instagram and saying and how many followers they have, and just so happened it came to me, and I go, okay, I showed my Instagram, like, compared to another teacher. I'm like, what? He has like 1,000, and I'm like half of that. I'm like, I was shocked. I thought I was the more popular one, but I guess I was not. But in that sense, it makes me feel kind of like a little bit, jealous, I would say, but also at the same time, what did I do wrong in my life? And
And
so,
what is that? Because the 1,000 followers, chances are in today's algorithms that 60% of those don't exist, right? If you look at
mm,
those followers, I get requests by people to follow me all the time, and I look at their profile, zero posts, and they're following 1,000 people. Okay, then you're
Mm.
not real. You were designed by a bot. You're not even real. I can buy packages of likes for Instagram.
Oh, for real?
Oh, for of course. Yeah, I can buy packages of likes and followers to build my platforms, right?
Mm.
So it's just not real. It just isn't real. And it's the fact that I personally don't want 1,000 friends. I really don't. I have 6 or 7 really core fundamental friends in my life, and then it goes from there, right? I have a business, you have a business, you have a podcast, you want followers because you're trying to create a platform and do other things. That to me is different than
Mm.
feeling loved and liked,
Mm.
right? My platform is not a reflection of whether I'm loved or liked. My platform is a reflection of whether or not people want to listen to me,
Mm.
but it's got nothing to do with me feeling loved or liked. I get that from somewhere else. And I think that people confuse the two.
In my sense, to clarify more, when when I do this platform, of course, there's always the mindset of thinking that if I do this well, I will get lots of money or support in the future, or things like that. I'm gonna say yes,
Yeah,
that
it's
is for
fun.
sure.
Yeah.
But one of the main reasons when I do this is actually to help myself as well. Because if we talk about mental health, I also have depression problems, right?
Mm.
And so when I do videos like this and I talk to you guys, to a bunch of people and successful people, and I look back at the videos, it actually helped me to think again, like, oh yeah, so what I can do to help myself to get better. So
Yeah.
as each time I do a video with each guest, successful guests, I actually help myself to improve myself, and hopefully, in the long run, if I do pass on from this life, hopefully my kids were able to access this content of videos that I
Mm.
made, and they're like, "Hey, that's my dad," or "Huh, that's my grandfather," and so
It's a legacy, isn't it?
yes. So in the same way, I'm trying to build that, I guess. Um, so at the same time, hopefully there are money involved, but of course that's gonna be
Great.
not
I
the
hope
main
so.
idea. The main idea is to work on it so that I can be a better person. So
Yeah. I think if you set your intention to create a gift for the present and the future, then the fortune follows you, right? The fortune will find you. I think your intention really sets the tone for what happens moving
mm,
forward. So I think it's amazing that you're able to create this kind of platform for people, to listen to and to learn from, and it's all positive. And that's really important.
it is definitely we have to be positive because there's so much negative right now.
It
Um,
feels like
like
it. Yeah.
social media has an algorithm, right? If you search for negative stuff,
Ooh,
they're
yeah.
gonna start giving you negative stuff. You're gonna
Yeah.
get negative content to look at. But if you
YouTube's the
actually
best at
start,
it for sure. Yeah.
yeah, if you
YouTube.
start
Yeah.
liking some positive videos, then you realize that you start getting lots of those positive things,
Yeah.
and which is pretty useful because right now, like I have TikTok, so I look at some great, interesting videos, like
Mm-hmm.
very positive, motivational, and I like them. Or I follow them, and eventually I start getting lots and lots of good inspirational videos, which is
Yes.
great. But at the same time, I feel like there should be more content. Sometimes motivational stuff is too little. There's too little out there, and for teenagers or young kids, they don't actually look for it. But if there is some interest
Yeah. Yeah.
that actually get them to like once or two, then maybe that would change their content a little bit to make them feel better.
I think it'd be nice if, and this is probably a really horrible idea, but that's okay. Um, if TikTok, Instagram, and other platforms were actually chose to self-regulate in a way that 30% of your content had a certain sort of messaging, right? Not programmed to try to brainwash you or anything, but just like, here's some puppies and kittens, here's some rainbows, here's, just to make sure that there's a little bit of balance in your timeline so that you're not, because when people go down those rabbit holes and they get
Mm,
into the hate environments and the fearful environments that create hate, there's nothing there to stop you from continuing to slide. And I know that I purposefully, my timelines are full of people who inspire me, who
yeah, that's
educate me and make me feel good, make me laugh. And I love TikTok. For me, it's comedic relief every day. I laugh every day when I would go on TikTok, and I know a lot of people who go down these rabbit holes of really dark
Mm.
conversations, and it's like, why are you there? There's so much more fun to be had if you just look for it,
Well,
you
that's the
know?
thing. Like, because sometimes when we are depressed or people are depressed, they tend to find another depressive thing,
For
another sad
sure.
thing. Like if I'm sad, I want to listen to sad songs. I want to watch a sad movie.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and so when that happens right now with the algorithm right now, if you look at TikTok, if you feel sad when I look for sad stuff, you're gonna start getting lots of sad stuff, and it does happen to me a couple times because I'm not perfect. I'm sad. I get depressive sometimes.
of
So when I'm sad,
course.
I
Yeah.
look up some sad videos, and then oh, okay, so there are some sadness in the world. But eventually, I notice I keep getting sad videos keep coming in when I'm
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
So that's well, I can't say too much about the platform, but it's a platform. They make money and they want to make it. How do we say? Um, freedom of speech, right? So anyone can make any kinds of content. I did remember when YouTube first started, it was only for educational purposes.
Yes.
And so at that time, I was well, not educator, I was in the institution. And so
Mm,
we were allowed to use YouTube to watch all this on to make educational videos and to watch educational videos from professors and stuff. But that was when it first started. But now it's like
yeah.
it's open up to everyone because when money, I feel like when money is involved, people start to think very differently about a lot of things. So at the same time, with problems like this, like we have with mental health issues and stuff, it does also involve a lot with money as well, because
Mm,
sometimes you feel like I can't get by to the next month. I don't make enough money, or how do I make ends meet? Um,
yeah. It's
yeah,
really
so
difficult. Yeah. I grew up poor. It's really difficult when you don't, we got a new pair of shoes in September. They had to last until June
yeah,
because, right? Because my father could afford one pair of shoe each, and they were the cheap shoes. They were the $5 shoes, right? They weren't the cool shoes. So, um, yeah, I mean, such a stress when someone in North America, when someone gets really sick, we don't have a health insurance
mm,
structure, so your entire family could become homeless because you have a medical bill, and that's something completely out of your control as a kid or as a teenager, but you have to live through it. So
right.
this, and that's why I think it's important to remember, and you're really good at it, obviously, is just noticing when your students are struggling, because it could have nothing to do with school, right? It could be a death in the family. It could be a bad relationship or abuse in the house or a medical condition or something else. And I think it's really amazing that you're paying attention to your students, even when they're being difficult, and you're
Well, if
really
I don't pay
paying
attention, I'm gonna
attention.
get fired the next day.
Yeah, well, there's that, but also you care. You actually care about what's happening with your students, and that's amazing.
Well, I would say one thing. When I work, I put effort into what I do sometimes.
Yeah.
I said sometimes, so it does, right? So it's more like, how would I say, if I want things to go well at my job, or if I want things to go well at certain things, I need to put a little bit of effort. I mean,
Yeah.
so if I don't put an effort, things are not going to go your way, and when things doesn't go your way, and so I feel like you shouldn't think of it like a failure, right? You should think of it, I try to think of it as a journey. It's gonna happen, so what can we do to make it better, right? So actually today I had a not a job interview, but a potential teacher came and asked us, what's the turn rate of our teachers here? Do teachers get
Mm,
fired easily? I'm like, well, if you're thinking about that, it shouldn't be the right way of thinking. It should be like, what can I do to not get fired, right? What should I do to improve myself so I can help better for this institution? And so when I think of that, I told that teacher that, and then I think for myself as well. I feel like, yeah, this what I just said actually, is very important. It's not like I should be thinking what is the mistake I'm going to make, or I'm afraid of making mistakes. I should be thinking, what can I do to actually make it better? At the same time, if I can think that, I can think of better things to improve my school, Students at the same time, students will benefit from it, and not only that, I benefit from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the future financially, but in the short term, it's just that when I do this, I feel better, I feel good. So and I told a friend recently as well, if I feel sad, you just gotta do things that make you happy. That's it. If this eating ice cream makes you happy at this moment, then buy an ice cream and eat an ice cream. That's it, right?
Yeah, take care of yourself and pay attention to what's happening in your mind, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. That person asked you, you know, I think a different way of asking that question is this environment predictable or unpredictable? And what's interesting to me about that question is that if I'm coming out of for myself, if I'm coming out of a space where things weren't always predictable, certainly as I
Mm,
was growing up, I needed to find predictable environments for a long time. And I needed to be in control of environments for a long time to feel safe and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting to me if I would love to ask that person, well, are you nervous about whether or not this is an unpredictable environment
mm,
that or are you asking because you have had a bad experience and you want to know how flexible this environment can be?
mm.
I'd want to ask that person, where does this question start for you? Like, what was the genesis for you to even want to ask this question, right? And I do think your response is right. It's like, well, maybe you need to look at it differently, you know?
Right. Yeah. When I looked at him, I thought there's a lot of things coming to my mind. I'm pretty sure it's more about experience that he had experienced, and
Mm,
so that's why I changed my answer to an answer that I think it's more appropriate
yeah, I
in that
agree.
sense
Yeah.
in that time. Because I for example, I do not want an educator who comes in here because they have problems before and they're looking to get away from a place. Um, by still going to a new place and bringing the same problems. You know, it should be the idea of improving and helping students. Because as an educator, I feel like the whole thing is if you're an educator, if you the whole mindset is educating students or the young ones for the future, but not to take advantage of it. So that's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. And like your job isn't your therapy session, right? So
No, no.
don't bring your stuff into your work. You need to go sort your mental health out with a professional or with someone so that you don't bring it into the work environment because the work is not meant to heal you.
Mm,
It's where you come to do your best and to receive, in exchange for me doing my best, I'm going to get paid for this. I'm going to build a career. So I think it's important for people to know that if things are going on with your mental health and with your life, whatever, that work is not the place where you're going to solve that. And especially with your teaching, I think there's an extra burden, an extra responsibility to not somehow let whatever's happening in your private life kind of spill into your student's life because that's not what you're there to do, right?
right, right, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
difficult. I see
it is
lots of young
difficult
teachers or even old teachers that couldn't differentiate between personal life, personal
for sure,
opinion,
for
personal
sure.
feelings towards certain students, and so it's difficult.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of bias sometimes. I know in North America there can be a lot of bias between teachers and students because of
Mm,
skin color and other things. And it's like you can't really bring that into, and even in the office, you can't bring that stuff in and expect to succeed and excel because
mm.
it creates barriers between you and who you're working with, you know?
What exactly? What's the point of putting a label out there when it's gonna hurt you yourself in the long run? It
Yeah,
doesn't help anything,
yeah,
and so yeah.
it's very
Well, thank
true.
you so much, Rebecca, for coming to the show today. We got lots of great insights and lots of learning from you. Is there anything you want to say to the viewers before we end? Like any?
I would just tell the viewers, and I just to use creativity wherever you can to kind of release some of your frustrations or to celebrate some positive things in your life. And I like to write, but maybe you like to paint, dance, whatever, right? Play music, whatever. But find something that brings you joy creatively and try to set aside a little bit of time to remember that and to practice that, and not something you have to do, but something you want to do, and just use creativity to really help you feel good and to remind you that there's a lot to life that's really beautiful.
Thank you. That's beautiful. There is definitely a lot to life. So I do want to add something for myself as well. I do want people to know that the topic today is their hope. There is definitely hope in everything. It's definitely um, for mental health. Right now, there's a lot of therapies and lots of
Mhm.
technology to provide and resources for individuals everywhere. There's even apps to help us.
Yes.
So we just need to understand that it's not the end, right? It's always a journey. Like we discussed earlier, it takes time and effort, right? Of course, with professional help, it helps as well, and
Mhm.
also with friends. If we have close core friends that we mentioned, they will actually help you more as well. And having the right set, and well, there are resources everywhere. Having the right mindset and using these resources will help us improve or get better at it. And I personally think this does help. One of the things that we mentioned is writing things down. So if we have the time, or actually, I should not say the question. The thing, if we have the time, we should make the time,
Find the time. Yeah.
find the time to write it down every day. And then like I do it on Facebook. You could do it in a book or anything. And
Yeah.
if it's bad, burn it. But I kept it to see for my
For
uh,
sure. Yeah.
future. All this will help us. So that's how I want to end it today. Thank you all for coming to the show. This is Uncle Dominic again. And with us, we have Rebecca. So thank you again, Rebecca.
Thank you so much.
Everyone else, there's more excellent topics or content to come from. So please like this and subscribe to this video, and so you can watch more videos in the future. So let's end it with our song, Just Chat song. And I'll play
Lift
it.
your spirit, fuel your fire. Passionate with stories untold. This is the place where you will fall. Just chat.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.